Shri Ghanapathy Namaha.
Wimbledon Vinayagar Thulai. Learned Sivacharyas. Friends, I am very grateful to Wimbledon Ganapathy Temple for giving me this opportunity to say a few words on this auspicious day, the Guru Puja of Saint Maanikavasagar. Saint Maanikavasagar composed the 8th Thirumurai, and we have been fortunate to learn from Sami Thandavani Oduvar many of these Thirumurais. The 8th Thirumurai constitutes Thiruvaavukarasar and Thirukkoviyar. The time was the 9th century. There has been some debate about the time, but Dr. T. N. Ramachandran, an authority, has fixed the time at 9th century because it was the time when Varagunapandiyan was ruling Madurai. And the evidence for this comes from two verses, 302 and 327 from Thirukkoviyar. The village was Vadavur, and the child that was born in Vadavur was named after the village as Thiruvaavukarar. Time goes on and he reaches the age of 16. The king hears about this genius who was 16 years old. He invites him to the palace and confers the title Thinnavan Brahmaraya and also offers the king is informed that some of the cavalry are aging and new horses are needed. So he calls his chief minister, takes him to the treasury, shows him some of the gems and jewels that are there and tells him, take anything that you want, go to the great port city of Tirupperunturai and purchase the best horses that you can. Accordingly, an entourage with Thinnavan Brahmarayan at its helm proceeds towards Tirupperunturai. As they get nearer and nearer the port city, something happens to Thinnavan Brahmarayan. He becomes agitated and restless. And at a distance, he could see a kurundam tree under which there is a senior gentleman with pearly white hair and a top knot saying something to those who have gathered around him. Thinnavan Brahmarayan gets even more drawn and agitated. He goes there, he is beckoned to come closer, he places his head and the old gentleman places his feet on his head. Suddenly, there is an experience as if an electric current has passed through, and there is a major change in his psyche. And this has been recalled by Maanikavasagar later in his verses. Nilandan mel vandaruli, Nil Kanalgal Kati, Nait Kadayai Kulanda Adiet Kitayit Suranda Tayavana Tatuvani. You, greater than the greatest mother I could think of, me, low and lowly than the dog that I can think of, you placed your holy feet on me. And he says, you drew me like a magnet being drawn towards a piece of iron being drawn towards a magnet. And after this transformation, there is further recitation of verses by Saint Maanikavasagar. And Shiva is so impressed that he says, you no longer will be called Thinnavan Brahmarayan, but Maanikavasagar, because your utterances are like rubies. Maanikavasagar looks around and sees this small shrine, and he says, this is Lord Shiva, and this is his home. And he tells his people, he gives them all the jewelry and the gems that he brought to buy horses to them and says, rebuild this temple. And that temple today is the Avudiyar temple, big, famous, and here pride of place is given to Saint Maanikavasagar. The story goes on. Now the king is waiting anxiously for his horses. And as time passes, he gets more and more restless. And Maanikavasagar, though, stays at Tirupperundurai and continues to compose the verses. The whole Sivapuranam was composed there. Namachivaya Valga, Naranthal Valga, Imaipodudum en Nenjil Ningadan Thal Valga. Even the blink of an eyelid, quicker than that, I will never forget the words Ningadan Thal, his feet, Thal Valga. Something that all of us should know by heart, Sivapuranam. Not only that, at Tirupperundurai, the famous words, Potti, in Vaal Mudalagiya Porule, Pulandadu. It's a waking up, Tirupalli Elichi, waking up Shiva. But is Shiva being woken up? No. It is called Thirodana Sutti, or Maya Nikam, removing the mystic darkness of Maya from our own minds, as if Shiva is being woken up. Poற்றிyan Vaal Mudalagiya Porule Pulandadu. பூங்குணன் துணை மலர் கொண்டு நின் திருவடி தொழுதோம் சேற்றிதழ் கமலங்கள் தன்வயல் சூழ் திருப்பெருந்துறையுரை சிவபெருமானே ஏற்றுயர் கொடியுடையாய் எனையுடையாய் எம்பெருமான் பள்ளி எழுந்தருளாயே. It's sung every morning. So here in the city of Tirupperundurai, in this great temple surrounded by fields, muddy but full of beautiful Kamalangal, beautiful lotus flowers. You, Emperuman, Palli Alandaraya, wake up. But it's actually us waking up. No sooner the captivating words reached Shiva's ears, then this title of Maanikavasagar becomes even more meaningful. The king, who has been waiting anxiously, by the way, in Madurai, is sent a large ruby as appeasement. And he is being told that horses will arrive on Avani Moolam day. But that temporary appeasement doesn't last, as the delivery of horses getting later and later and is being delayed even more. The king loses his patience, rests, gets Maanikavasagar arrested, and he is imprisoned. And he undergoes torture there. But on the day of Avani Moolam, horses do arrive, brought by a princely young gentleman. And he is rather aloof. He's not bothered about the hospitality and all the fanfare that is being offered by Varaguna Pandiyan. Somebody whispers into the king's ears, "Sir, don't worry, these foreigners behave in a peculiar way." And the king swallows his pride, because all he wanted was the horses, and the horses that are there, beautiful horses. They all go to bed, and suddenly, in the middle of the night, a thunderous noise disturbs everybody, and the king looks out to the window, and instead of horses, he finds jackals running here and there, biting his own horses. And there is bloodshed and destruction. The king gets furious, and Maanikavasagar is arrested, and further punishment is meted out to him for cheating the king. Maanikavasagar is made to stand hot sand on the bed of Vaigai Nadi, the river in Madurai, with a huge stone on the back of his neck, looking up towards the sun. Is this bearable? No. Lord Shiva simply tilts his head, and the Ganga, which is gushing from his crest, fills the Vaigai Nadi with water as floods everywhere. The king gets very upset, and he orders every citizen of the land to do their bit to try and reinforce the dam of the river. Now, enter Vandi, or Sammanachelvi, a widow who, with a meager income by selling puttu or rice cakes, earns a living. She also has to do her part, but what can she do? So there was this young lad who is coming there with a basket and a mammoty or spade, offering to help the lady. And she says, I have no money to pay you, but I will give you some puttu. He gladly accepts it. So in advance he is paid. He takes it to the bank of the river where everybody else is working very hard. He enjoys this puttu and decides to have a nap. He uses the basket as his mat, as his pillow, and falls asleep. The king is going round on his inspection and suddenly sees this. He was so annoyed that he took a cane and gave him a lash. As that happened, the young lad suddenly disappears laughing, but everybody else, including the king, experiences an acute pain. Now, Maanikavasagar then is worshipped because they all know that this is again an act of God and he is forgiven, and he moves from shrine to shrine singing. Incidentally, here he does not travel as much as the other three from the quartet, the Nalvar, did. But in some of the shrines, he sang some superb verses, some of which we will recall today. For example, Uttarakosamangai was an important site, Thiruvarur, Thiruvannamalai, Thirukalukundram, Sirhali being some of them. Let's think of some of them. In Namachivaya Valga, the greatness of Maanikavasagar comes out. In one stanza he says, Pullahi, Pudahi, Puluvahi, Maramahi, Palmirigamahi, Paravayai, Pambai, Kallai, Manidarai, Peyai, Kanangalai, Val Asurarahi, Munivarai, Thevarai, Ella Purappum, Purendilaithe, Namberuman. Meye un Ponnadigal Kandendru Vuduken. You know, I'm weary of having been born in so many ways in this world. I'm tired. I want recourse to your holy feet. I'm tired of this cycle of rebirths. The interesting question some people have asked when this is compared to the evolutionary process of plants and animals and all other types of living beings, why Maanikavasagar chose to include a stone, Kallai, Manidarai, Peyai, Kanangalai. Now, if we turn to the words of Fritjof Capra, one of the famous physicists, who in 1976 published his book, Tao of Physics, where he says there is no difference between solids and other material, because solids also have particles in perpetual motion, as if they were alive. So Maanikavasagar possibly had the foresight to include Kallai, Manidarai, Peyai, Kanangalai, Val Asurarahi, Munivarai, Thevarai. Then in another instance, how can Maanikavasagar include a stone? So we found the explanation for that. Staying with physics and astronomy, again Maanikavasagar in the Thiruvandapahadi talks about Andapahadiyin Undai Purakam, Alapperum Tanmai, Valapperum Kaatchi, Undranukondru Nundru Elil Paharin, Nuttoru Hodiyin, Metpada Virindana, Ilnudai Hadarin, Nunanapureya, Siriyavaha Periyon Theriyin. It was, I think, in the 16th century, there was this huge debate going on. For example, Galileo Galilei, whether the earth was globular. Now, Maanikavasagar not only said the earth, but also all the planets were globular, and as if a pencil of light, when a pencil of light comes through the roof, a small hole in a roof, you see small dust particles, thousands, millions of dust particles floating. The galaxy is like that, with so many globular planets circulating. But compared to Lord Shiva, this is nothing. நின்றொழில் பகரின் 101 கோடியின் மேற்படவிருந்தன இல்நுழை கதரின் நுண்ணணுப்புரிய சிறியவாக பெரியோன் தெரியின். Again, in Chidambaram, Maanikavasagar sings Potti Thiruvaavukarasar. In that, he recalls, he goes through a series of developments, almost from the stage of fertilization to the whole development of the human embryo into a baby. The entire sequence of events in conception and pregnancy is taken through in that. In Thiruvannamalai, he sings the Thiruvammanai, in which he says, Unai, Uirai, Unarvai, and Utkalandu Thenai Amudamumai. That Utkalandu is an important phrase. If you go through that stage by stage, as flesh, as feelings, as consciousness. Unai, Uirai, Unarvai, and Utkalanda Thenai Amudamumai. This is perhaps what prompted Vallalar many, many years later to talk about Van Kalanda Maanikavasagar, Un Vasagathai, Nan Kalanda Padangal, Un Kalandu, Uir Kalandu, Vattamal Inipaduve. You know, when I sing your songs, it is as if the Van Kalanda Maanikavasagar, the one who has joined God, Lord Shiva, Un Vasagathai,